Hello, in this video I'm covering the game between Baadur Jobava and Michael Adams from round 2 of European Team Championship. The opening was Italian, and here Baadur chose c3, knight f6, d4, which breaks symmetry in the position. He could also play something like d3, which keeps the symmetry on the board, cd4, and now e5. Also, cd4 was possible here, and after bishop b4, and after knight bd2 or bishop d2, he can take and go d5. And in case of knight bd2, he can capture, which is a bit risky for black. And again, he can play d5 here. So in both cases, d5 can be played by black and leaving white with the d4 isolated pawn. e5 was played. If black plays knight e4 here, now white has bishop d5 and the knight on e4 is undefended. If you try f5, then after cd4, bishop b4, bishop d2, let's say, and now black is in trouble, because if you compare this to the game, black cannot castle in this position. He's lagging in development. White can simply develop by castling, going knight c3 and building up the initiative. Instead, he plays d5, which is a normal move, bishop e2 back, and now knight e4. White took on d4, bishop b4, bishop d2 was played. Black has two options. He can capture with the knight, gaining the bishop pair, or capturing with the bishop. He took with the bishop. Also, this was quite fine. And after castling, he would go f6, trying to open up the center, trying to utilize his bishop pair to the fullest. I think that white would try just to keep the e5 pawn there, not to take it, because if you take, then queen f6, and all of a sudden bishop on d6 is gonna come, and a bishop pair would look quite unpleasant here. So he takes here, knight d2, castles, and bishop f5. Rook c1, and now queen e7. Knight b3 now, heading towards c5, f6, and now rook e1. Now Adams played king h8. In this case, even taking on e5 was good, and after d to go rook a d8. Black's position looks very comfortable because knight on e4 is very active, and if white tries something like bishop b5 to double the pawns on the c file, then bishop g4 is a nice counter-attack, pinning the knight. And if you take, now bishop f3 is a big threat, maybe knight d4, but then after capturing knight f3, c5, again, black is very good here. White's knight on f3 is tied to defending the e5 pawn. The f2 pawn might be vulnerable in some cases. Instead, he played king h8 here, which is fine also. Bishop b5 and now knight d8, trying to escape from capturing on c6. ef6 and now queen f6. gf would be just too much because of knight h4 and threats like f3 next. So he took with the queen. Knight e5 now, and here c6. Here it was possible also to go knight f2, a very interesting move. And after king f2, to go bishop d3. And after king g1, to go bishop b5. And now it's not possible to take on c7 because of queen f2. And after king h1, can you pause the video and find the right move? The right move is bishop f1. And now the g2 pawn is all of a sudden under attack. If you try with queen g4 to attack on g7 back, then black has bishop g2. And in case of queen g2, you take the rook. And after queen g1, just rook f1 wins immediately. White cannot capture on c7, but he can play knight c5. And after queen d6 to stop the fork on d7. To go queen b3, bishop c6. Black is quite passive, and white has nice compensation for a sacrificed pawn. Probably that's something that Adams didn't like in this position, and that's why he chose to play c6 instead. Bishop f1 back, and now there's no knight f2 idea because the bishop is now defended on f1. Now he tries to eliminate the knight from e5, but now f3 first. You cannot capture immediately on e5 because of de, and now the knight on e4 is going to hang because the queen on f6 is under attack. So he has to go back to d6. And now rook c3, a nice rook lift. White tries to compete for the e file, and this is the fastest way possible, to just rook lift on c3 and go to e3. Now black does the same, tries to compete for the e file, and now rook c3. Queen d8 back, queen c1, and now king g8. queen c5, and now knight c8, defending the a7 pawn, and here a3. Here black plays h5, probably to stop some expansion with g4 later on, but this move seems quite risky. It just weakens the king side. Queen b4 now, and now queen b6 by Adams. Here it was better to go knight e5. If white takes with the d pawn, then b6, and next will be c5, d4, trying to get some central activity. And in case of rook e5, to take, and b6, trying to stop knight from going to c5. Also, the b7 pawn was under attack, so and after queen c3 to attack on c6, just queen f6. Black's position seems quite solid. Queen b6 was played, and now queen c3. Black's problem here is that he cannot utilize his pawn majority on the queen side, and knight on b3 is doing a great job of fixing those pawns. Black takes on e5 now, d5. Queen on b6 is now hindering this b6 c5 idea, which I mentioned before. Knight e7 was played, and now e6, not allowing any blockade like bishop e6, rook f6, and now knight c5, trying to fork on d7, and now rook h6, trying to escape. If he tried something like this, because now after knight d7 you can take on e6 and destabilize the knight. If he takes, he can go for knight f6, because he's anyways going to lose this knight, so let's try to weaken the structure. But after this gf, rook e6, rook f8, the position is slightly more pleasant for white, but black should be fine. And after bishop d3, to go queen f4, threatening d4, and black is quite fine. Instead, in the game, he played rook h6. b4 now, trying to strengthen the c5 square, and also not to allow b6, c5 ideas, like we saw before. Queen c7, and now rook e5. Rook f6 back, and now bishop d3, trying to exchange this nice defensive piece on the king side. Black took, and now knight g6. Now rook h5, but now after b6, the e6 pawn will hang, because the knight has to go from c5. Knight d7, now takes on e6, and here Baadur plays knight f6. And now Michael Adams makes a decisive mistake, he plays gf. If he just played king f7 here, after capturing on e8, he would first capture on e1, and after king f2, to go rook e8, and after a check to recapture the knight, black has to go to e7. After queen g6, he can evacuate on the queen side by king d8, king c8, but instead, he went with gf here. First, he takes on e6. If queen g6 here, then after queen g7, now white is forced to give queen for two rooks. Like this, and king f7, rook h8. But after f5, it's pretty complicated, because black has those two pawns in the center, a potential c-pass pawn. I'm not sure if it would be enough for white to convert this. So first he takes on e6, takes, and now queen g6. Black's king is very exposed now, and he cannot go to f8 here because of rook h8 and losing the queen on c7. So the only move is queen g7 here. Now white escapes the trade, goes queen f5, and now Adams plays rook e1. If he went for rook e7 here, now white gives a check and takes on c6. He's going to lose the d5 pawn, and it's pretty much over. And if he goes to e8, now white has a nice move, b5. And after cb, takes on d5, king f8, queen b5, white is a pawn up, and also black's king is still quite vulnerable. So in the game he plays rook e1, king f2, and now he tried to go for perpetual with rook e2, but now he takes queen g2, king d3, and now the only check is queen f1. But after king c3, Adams resigned in this position, because after, let's say, queen e1, you have king b2, and after queen d2, queen c2, queen d4, and after king goes to a2, there are no more checks, and that's game over. In this position, if he plays queen c1 instead, then you can just cover with the queen. If black takes king d2, he can take a couple of more pawns, but the point is that white escapes checks. And after queen e7 to go to f2, and now white can attack black. That's it. Thank you so much for watching, and have a nice day. Goodbye.